Today we're going to be looking at those undervalued players who have upside in fantasy football for 2023 to help you win your draft, win your league, and get you ready for the season. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of this content, because we're pumping out fantasy football content on the daily, 365 days a year, and it's going to help you win your leagues. It's going to help you become a better fantasy football player. John Cena's back there watching you, making sure you do so, and you don't want to disappoint him anyway. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. But let's go ahead. Let's look at our first player today as we work around this list. First guy we're looking at today is JAYLEN WADDLE, wide receiver, 11 in ADP per Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy because drafts are hot right now on there. Been hot all year. So it's kind of sticky for player value. We're going on the player positional value right now. Wide receiver 11 for JAYLEN WADDLE. Kind of being slept on, but not, because he's still expensive. But looking at the numbers here, might be a little bit undervalued. 22% target share, 27% share of the air yards. That is huge here in this offense, considering they like to air out. 15th in plays, 61% pass rate last year for Miami. So they move the ball. They are fast. One of the top third in the league in play rate. Something you want to look into. 6 wide receiver 1 games last year. So production matters, and he can be productive. And why not take another step forward this year? Outside of nowhere upside, when you're looking at top tier production, that's what could happen with JAYLEN WADDLE this year. You could definitely see that happening. Tyreek Hill is still there, still running routes, still stretching the field, still getting that yak. Also had a big domestic dispute or whatever happened a few weeks ago. Don't know if that's going to impact things. JAYLEN WADDLE, though, looking good on the offseason workouts and everything we've seen so far. Next player, though, that we're looking at, Russell Wilson, QB 18 in ADP. So your second quarterback, or if you're going 0 QB, late round quarterback, however you want to call it, might be an option for you. Dirt cheap. He was horrible in 2022. That's why he's cheap right now. But they revamped the offensive line. They threw a lot of money at it, trying to get some players there, trying to build that up. Sean Payton's there. Can they take a step forward? Can Russell Wilson take a step forward? Can this offensive line help him out a little bit? Can things improve? We got Jerry Jeudy. We might get some air yards going to Cortland Sutton. Patrick's back. Tim Patrick out there getting some yards. This is going to be an interesting year here for Russell Wilson. And QB 18, he can probably give you a return on investment on that number. He can probably give you some games, especially in the AFC West when you're getting a lot of shootouts. Cheap option if you're going late at quarterback. The upside's there, especially in some of these matchups. Looking at the next player, ZAMIR White, RB64 ADP. And the reason why we're looking at him is Josh Jacobs potentially holding out. Plus, Josh Jacobs has had some injuries throughout his career. Not huge ones, but he's had those. And running backs get hurt. And this is a guy who has a 96th percentile speed score. 4th round draft pick in 2022. Upside for days. They also have Amir Abdullah, Brandon Bolden. But if I'm looking for pure upside in the back end of this roster and I want to handcuff Josh Jacobs, or if I want to get a backup running back who has upside, ZAMIR White is a guy to look at. I look for him to rise up boards here in the next few days and weeks because Josh Jacobs and maybe the chance of him holding out, maybe ZAMIR White could shoot up some boards, and we're just banking on the upside from the athleticism. He's also 215 pounds, which is where he weighed in at from the NFL draft. Has the size to carry the workload. That size adjusted athleticism could allow him to be very productive. Next player we're going to be looking at, Elijah Moore, wide receiver 44 in ADP. I look for him to be a riser. A lot of people talking him up right now. Broke out as a rookie with the Jets, then last year happened. It wasn't good. But, you know, Zach Wilson and company, it wasn't going good either. Now we're gone. Now we're with the Browns. We got Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's looking to take a step forward now with a full offseason with the team. So things are materializing right now. Go back in the archives of this channel. Look at the clips from minicamp with this team, with Watson, Moore, Amari Cooper. They were humming. They were looking good. The passing game might see a very big uptick this year. And then going back to his collegiate profile, man, this guy was nasty. Age 19 breakout, 41.9% dominator rating. This guy was productive at Ole Miss with some hosses there like DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, and this guy was holding his own in the production profile. Elijah Moore is a good wide receiver. Going on to the next guy, Damien Harris, RB38 and ADP. So he might be your RB3 or so, depending on how you drafted, or you're going 0 RB and you're looking at these back-end running backs. Here's one you can look at. Bills' offense is key here because they're going to move the football. Devin Singletary's gone. That's leaving 24% share of the opportunity there. So some of that can go to Damien Harris. James Cook is there as well. However, this guy's going to get some work on the goal line, the short yardage work, between the tackles work. And he had 9 games last year with over a 72 pass block rating per PFF. So that means they're going to count on him to pass block, which means he's going to be on the field. They're going to use him. Red zone threat. And again, RB38, no loss here because you're investing in the Bills' offense. Do you not want the Bills' offense? That's one thing you want to look at. Here's a piece of it that you could get. Next player, Brandin Cooks, wide receiver, 43 in ADP. He had 6 1,000-yard seasons with 4 different teams. We broke out with 4 different teams already in the league. This could be Team 5. This could be Team 5. Dallas could be pass-heavy this year. They only got Tony Pollard at running back, really, and did not bring anybody else of consequence in on the roster, and Pollard's coming back from a huge injury, which means if something happens to Pollard, they're probably slinging the rock. They might be slinging the rock anyways. In the 2 games without Ezekiel Elliott on the field, he only carried the ball 18 times. They might be cooking that ball in the air. They might be cooking it to Cooks. They might be cooking it to Lamb. We also have Michael Gallup there as competition. But the thing about Brandin Cooks and why we like him is he's very nuanced, very solid at the catch point. He can get those air yards downfield. Dak Prescott is a value right now. Probably should have had a thing on him maybe later on the next video, so you might want to subscribe so you don't miss that. But Brandin Cooks here could be a good value at wide receiver 43, giving you some volatile production because I see him catching some deep balls, getting his opportunities. And the NFC East is slowly getting better, which means we're going to have some big games here and there. That's going to allow for this team to cook and allow some of these players to get their opportunity. Next player, Anthony Richardson, QB11 ADP. Price is kind of high considering he's a developmental quarterback who's a rookie. But think about it this way. 244 pounds, 4'4", 4'3", 40-yard dash. 4'4", 4'3", 40-yard dash. Let's say that right. 99th percentile speed score. Remember Tim Tebow? Remember some of these running quarterbacks who were not good to start things off or ever good, but still was fantasy relevant? He doesn't have to be good. He just has to be on the field and he has to be getting you fantasy points. We see the story here, how that happens. That could be the thing here. QB11, the Konami code's huge. Look at the back end of the schedule here after the bye week, week 12 to 17, 18 if you're in a funky league that plays the last week of the season. But it's very favorable for him. This is when we could see him light things up, be more productive, and then go into next year as one of the top gets in Dynasty Fantasy Football. That's where we could see things light up. He's got the speed score, he's got the size, he's got the arm talent. You know what? He can mess up in some games. He can have some bad moments, but he can still deliver fantasy production, and that upside's huge with that. That is very huge. QB11, considering how high the upside is, very good price points. Next guy, Zach Evans, RB75. Probably not getting drafted in a lot of your leagues. You might want to just monitor on the waiver wire, but he's explosive. Going into the college ranks, when he was going to TCU, was considered one of the most athletic running back prospects to ever come out, was a 5-star. A lot of things going on with him. Every college was trying to get him. It didn't happen. He went to TCU, then went to Ole Miss. 4.21 yards after contact per attempt on his career. Because he's explosive, he can get you yards after contact because he bounces off and gets you those extra yardage. And watching him on tape, it's just fun to watch. Cam Akers had a good end of the year last year, strung together some games after a rough start. He was coming back from an Achilles injury, but running backs are running backs. Running backs get hurt. And if you're looking for a running back to take over if something happens to Akers, he does have that injury still on him that happened, and those pre-existing conditions are just sitting there. You never know what's going to happen. He is an insurance policy or a guy you want to pull the trigger on if something happens to him. Know the name Zach Evans, at least, because the upside is unreal. Next guy, Mike Evans, wide receiver, 35 in ADP, and I was just in a draft. He fell much farther than that. I don't know what wide receiver, 40, 45 or so, but it was to a point where he was falling in the draft, and I was like, I'm not pulling the trigger. I want to see how far it goes. I want to see what these other 11 jabronis do. He fell a few more rounds. 20% target share. He had a 36% share of the team's passing air yards, which is huge, which is big time. Gets downfield, catches deep targets. He was third in deep targets last year among all wide receivers. Baker Mayfield, we don't like that name. We don't like to hear that name attached to our wide receivers. But the one thing about him is he tosses up those YOLO balls. He tosses up the deep balls. Top 6, top 10 in deep ball attempts. That marriages well with Mike Evans. And you know what? We might have some volatility here. We might have some low volume games in scoring. We might have some high volume games in scoring with that. Wide receiver 35 at that price tag, that is what you're looking at. And you want those top-end games. We're probably going to get that with Mike Evans. So expect maybe some volatility considering the quarterback play. But considering how he plays, how Baker plays, this could go well together in certain situations, certain matchups. And you might want that in your lineup. Going on to Irv Smith, tight end 18 in ADP. The thing about this is it's tethered to Joe Burrow, the Bengals offense, and you want a piece of that. And he's free. So you're getting him as one of the last tight ends in the draft, usually in your drafts. And the thing about that is you're either going early tight end or you're waiting. And if you're going to wait, you might as well wait. This guy's athletic. He's got cheap upside here. You can really just stream the tight end position and be okay. He's going to be a streamer off and on throughout the year. That's pretty much what we're going to look at. But the Bengals offense, we're looking at a second-round draft pick. He's had some time in the league. This could be the scenario where he takes a step forward. And when we're looking at scoring at the tight end position from week to week, a lot of times the tight end 25 isn't too off from like the tight end 12, the tight end 11, the tight end 10. And then there are a few weeks throughout the season, and it's usually about every year, maybe 1 to 3 weeks out of the year, like the tight end 6, 8, 9 range. They're not even scoring double-digit fantasy points. So why not pay down the position if you didn't get a Kelsey or a Mark Andrews? Get a guy like Irv Smith and just play the waiver wire, play the Bengals offense, see what happens, and just mix and match your lineup and see what happens, considering the volatility at the position and how the scoring is so weird there, and just stack up at running back and wide receiver. Going on to Tyler Algier, RB48 ADP. Had 1,000 yards last year as a rookie. Proven to handle workload. Bijan Robinson is there. Everybody loves Bijan. But he's a solid handcuff because he's proven he can handle the workload. And he's proven to be productive. And they still might use him on the goal line. And they still might use him on short yardage. So there might be some upside here. Especially if something happens to Bijan Robinson. He is a rookie. He did have some knick-knack injuries throughout his career at Texas a couple years ago. Some of that might materialize. But running backs are running backs, and he's a handcuff that has proven to be productive, and he's going into his second year. Going on to our next guy, Rashod Bateman, one of our favorite wide receivers in the league, wide receiver 45 in ADP. So we're starting to catch the discount here. We're starting to see it. I told you earlier this offseason, we're going to start seeing the discount on Rashod Bateman, and I told you wait for that dip if you want to get him in Dynasty because it's going to happen. We're starting to see it here in the redraft area in best ball. And Rashod Bateman, wide receiver 45 in ADP, coming back from a Liz Frank. We might see a slow start. We might not. Injuries like this are very tricky. History is not very favorable. He's averaging 1.95 yards per route ran with Lamar Jackson. That's 26th among wide receivers in the last couple of years. So things are solid here. If he's on the field, he can be productive. And at wide receiver 45, which is super cheap, you're getting a hell of a talent. You're getting a talented wide receiver who could flash production off and on throughout the year, depending how he comes back from the Liz Frank. It's not really a gamble here. When you're looking at the talent versus the price tag, it's something you want to try and catch there. I like him at this price. Next guy we want to look at here, Eric Gray from the New York Giants, RB 73 in ADP, going undrafted in most leagues, but I think things are going to go up here in ADP form here soon. Saquon Barkley might hold out, he might not. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, but he's also got a huge injury history. We all know that. So this is a guy you want off the Giants. Upside for days with him. Looked good with Tennessee. Looked good with Oklahoma. Moves well. Moves laterally well. And if this offense is moving the ball, he'll be getting fantasy points to some extent. They also got Matt Breida. However, we're chasing upside here. Eric Gray's more of the unknown. He fell in the draft, but this has been a very tricky draft class considering the talent and how the macroeconomics played things out. Eric Gray going to the Giants could be an upside play that you just get with one of your last picks and you turn and burn if things don't go your way or something better comes off the waiver wire. So really, there's no loss considering the sunk cost. But Eric Gray's a guy you need to pay attention to due to Saquon Barkley's situation and injury history. That's it. Those are 12 undervalued players that you can catch for a discount in fantasy football this year. Let me know who you're trying to get in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out, and I'll catch you on the next video.